Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport Baithak podcast. I'm your host DD and joining me once again is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we'll be talking about the Formula One 2021 Bahrain Grand Prix. So let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready our opinions, and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant. What a race! I have only one thing to say. Scrap the 2022 rule change and let's just live with this for the next 4 years until 2025 when the engine regs kick in, when the new engine regs kick in. This was so exciting. I have never seen a season opener so thrilling. And I was on the edge of my seat for the entire hour and a half. What did you think about the race, Vedant? I am still buzzing.
Yeah, hello Divya. It's great to be back and it's great to have this season going after a long time. Absolutely. The race was absolutely magnificent. Lewis Hamilton starting the season off with a win for the first time since 2015. But I don't agree with you on the regulations part.
Come on, we've never had a season opener so close. It's always been in like an out and out. For the first time ever, first time in 5 years, Lewis Hamilton wins the first race of the season. Valtteri Bottas doesn't turn up for the first time in 3 years. There's no Valtteri Bottas 3.0. And Max Verstappen qualifies 4 tenths ahead in P1 in front of both the Mercedes. Crazy weekend. I don't even know what to say.
Absolutely. It was a great start to the season, which we all expect to be one of the best seasons in Formula One, if not the best. The midfield
At
is
least the
so
best
close.
of the turbo hybrid era for sure.
Definitely. The midfield is so close, and we saw it on the race. Like there was action all throughout the race, up and down the field. There was not a dull moment on the race, and we missed a lot of action because the broadcasters were showing some other action.
Yeah, I know. There was a time when we were seeing Max Verstappen leading in the Red Bull, and then in the little box in the corner, next to the all, next to where they show all the positions and that graphic. There's like a little box where we were seeing Charles Leclerc like overtake someone, and I was like, why are we seeing the overtakes on like a small box? Why aren't we seeing the overtakes on the big screen?
Yeah, it was like, as you said, one of the best season openers in a long time. And man, oh man,
And
what a race!
we have a first time Grand Prix winner. Sir Lewis Hamilton was his first ever Formula One Grand Prix.
Oh yes, absolutely. The first ever British knight to win a Formula One Grand Prix.
Absolutely. So you know what? Let's get right into it. Let's start at quali. What's happened in P1? Out and out right pace. The Red Bull looks really good, really stable in Verstappen's hand. Perez missing out very nearly for getting into Q3. Because of the medium tires. Maybe that gamble didn't work out, as it didn't work out for a lot of other people like Sonoda in the AlphaTauri. So it was kind of disheartening to see the Honda engine pair missing out on Q3 because of the medium tire gamble. Danny Rick beating Lando, that was also a huge story for me. Danny Rick looked really comfortable in quali in the McLaren car, which didn't really turn out to be the same during the race. We'll get onto that later. And Gasly finishing P5 and both the Ferraris in Q3. What stood out to you during qualifying, Vedant?
Oh, definitely. For me, like Carlos Sainz, and we saw in Q2, the Ferraris went top of the sheet with the soft tires on, and the car
Now
and
that is
Carlos.
something I have screenshotted and I have saved in my phone. It's gonna live with me until Ferrari wins the next championship.
Oh yes, but for me, like Carlos Sainz has been the best adapter to a new car this season, and he has shown it. He has gone absolutely flat out against
Ballistic.
Charles Leclerc, and this might be the most interesting new driver pairing, in my
I think
opinion.
I think Charles came onto the radio at the end of Q3 and he said, congratulations to Sainz. He really pushed me throughout qualifying, which was him acknowledging, because Sainz had been faster than Leclerc all throughout qualifying until the last run when Charles went P4.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc fight is going will go on throughout the season. Another thing that made me happy was Fernando Alonso continuing where he left off, beating his
Well,
teammate in qualifying.
yeah, and then look what happened in the race, bro. Like, look what happened in
Yeah,
the race.
that was a technical failure,
So
so
for
it's
all
not his
so
fault.
for all the Alonso fans, jumping the gun and saying, "Oh, Alonso left off from where he started." Well, I guess he left off from McLaren and he joined in, I guess, a 2018 McLaren-esque fashion where he had to retire the car. So,
Yeah.
but
But
yeah, definitely great stuff from Alonso, like you said, and Ocon and Vettel got caught out by the Mazepin, as he's already been termed, or Mazespan if you're a Crofty fan, depending on whatever you're following. So, so Mazepin having a few spins on the track, and it caught out both Vettel and Ocon during qualifying, which really hurt Vettel's race. To be honest, I guess. We didn't see Vettel in high spirits this weekend either.
yeah, like Vettel was already struggling with the car a little bit due to it being a new team and a new car. Then he didn't have the best of testing. He was, I think he ran the least laps among the regular drivers. And now this weekend, where he couldn't qualify as good as he would have liked, and his race didn't turn out as he would have wished. So definitely a poor start to Vettel's post Ferrari career. But I think
And he did look like a little out of sorts even during the race. I remember him like going wide into turn one, like really wide into turn one a couple of times, and then he ended up crashing into the back of Ocon's car towards the end of the race, and then he tried to blame Ocon that he switched racing lines, but it was really him, switching racing line and crashing into Ocon's back, which was very uncharacteristic of Seb Vettel in general.
yeah, exactly. I mean, Sebastian Vettel, we all wish that he moves on from his the Ferrari baggage, as we can call it, and get a rebirth of sorts. But I didn't see that rebirth this weekend, and we can all hope that Imola would be better for him.
We have been hoping for the last couple of years for Seb Vettel, but his luck hasn't turned around. So we'll see how that goes. But let's dive into the race. So the drama started even before the lights went out, and we had to wait for another lap, to finally hear the golden words of "It's lights out, and away we go." Perez had a power electronics problem once again, but he was able to start his car, and he had to start from the pit lane. Uh, and the power electronics problem had happened on Gasly's car earlier, and Perez's, and it had also been like shown on like Perez's data. So although the power electronics had been changed on both Gasly's and Perez's cars, Perez still ended up having a problem. But what a drive from Perez at the end of the day, finishing P6, was it?
P5, P5.
P5, yeah, that's right. Perez finished P5 ahead of Charles Leclerc and behind Lando Norris. What a race from that guy, coming once again from behind. And if he had a little bit more in his tires, he would have been P4, just where Red Bull want him to be every race, every weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I think the first safety car really helped Perez get those older mediums off, and like get the strategy of his choice.
New mediums, yeah.
Yeah, and I think even though he did 3 pit stops during due to his early stop, but again it really helped him, boost his chances. And we know Sergio Perez is a great driver, and in the Red Bull, starting from the back of the grid, starting from the pit lane, I think that's the best he could do, and that's what he did.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seemed, in his first race, the deficit to Verstappen in qualifying compared to any other driver was the same nominal value of about 3.5 tenths for Perez too. So we can hope that, we know his race start is great, but we hope he qualifies better so that, Red Bull has that strategy option to put Perez on like the same strategy as Verstappen, instead of having to have Perez start on the soft like Albon did last year and compromise the race for the second Red Bull car. Yeah, and then very first corner, we had Mazepin spin out once again, one of the many spins he's had this weekend, and crash into the wall. again, seemed like a rookie mistake. He got onto the throttle way too early and way too eager on the throttle and just spun out and damaged the car. Looks like a lot of money coming from Dimitri Mazepin to repair that car this time, especially at the very beginning of the season. Not a
Yeah.
cheap repair, that one.
But that angle from looking down on the straight from turn 4. So when Mazepin spun out, that incident was similar to when Grosjean spun out, and I was a little worried at the moment, like who was it? Are they fine and all that? But yeah, it's glad to see that it was only a spin and nothing more.
Yeah, that was definitely even my heart skipped a beat when I saw that happen. But thankfully, Nikita Mazepin is doing just fine. Interesting story coming from Ted Kravitz in the com box during the start of the race, talking about Burt Mylander and how Burt Mylander told him that he felt like James Bond in the Aston Martin safety car that we saw for the first time on track during the race, and how Burt said his name was Burt. The name's Burt Mylander. Seemed like Kravitz putting words into Burt Mylander's mouth, but a great content coming from Ted Kravitz nonetheless.
Ted
Uh,
Kravitz, yeah.
let's talk about the rookie sensation that we saw in the race today. Yuki Tsunoda had a
Yuki
poor
Tsunoda.
start. Started 12th on the grid. Ended up 17th after the virtual safety car, and then made its way back to P9 throughout the race. Now, that goes to show two things. That this individual is again another promising individual that the Red Bull family has found through its driver program, and that the AlphaTauri car has a lot of pace in it, and there's more to come from the AlphaTauri team throughout the season.
Definitely, Yuki Tsunoda has been one of the standout performers of the short season we have had so far. Only the testing and race one, and I think we'll see a lot more from him during the season and during his career. But what a race! And I mean, finishing P9 after that poor start, after starting as you said P12, it was a great debut. He is the first Japanese driver to score points on his debut, as the graphics showed during the race. And but yeah, definitely, if Pierre Gasly didn't had that incident and would have been running in those point position, that would have shown the real pace of the AlphaTauri car, because of course Yuki Tsunoda is quick, but he's still a rookie, and he
He's
may
still
not be able
learning the skills
to.
of the trade.
Yeah, he
Absolutely.
may not be able to extract the absolute best out of the car. Pierre Gasly would have been absolutely beautiful in those points position. It's a shame we couldn't
But
see him.
But I think more than anything else, it just goes. Yuki's performance over the weekend just goes to show, in what kind of a mindset he's in. A very positive mindset, because he missed out in Q3 because of, gambling on the mediums. He ended up, being eliminated in Q2. Had a poor start, but yet, we've seen a lot of drivers who've had spent seasons in F1, and still they can't recover from like a bad start, or like a bad first half of the race. But Yuki Tsunoda showed what he's made of and where his mind's at, and that is that he wants to be on the top step of the podium. A couple other interesting battles that he had during the race. The first one that came to my mind was we saw the oldest and the youngest guys on the grid battle it out for P10. I'm talking about Kimi Raikkonen, Yuki Tsunoda once again. Great
Yeah,
little battle, great move by Yuki Tsunoda around Raikkonen, and just reminded me of just how much experience there is on the grid, and how it is how, how much like I value the fact that we're seeing the greats of the previous generation and the upcoming generation battle it out on track, and we don't always get to see this happen in Formula One.
Yuki Tsunoda was only 6 months old when Fernando Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen made their debuts in the 2001 Australian Grand Prix.
Yes.
That is a
It's
stat I will never forget.
it's crazy. And Yuki Tsunoda did also mention in the post-race interview with Bill Buxton how overtaking Fernando Alonso was like a very emotional experience from him. I don't remember much from the interview, but I remember you mentioning it. So why don't you go ahead and tell us what exactly he said during the interview?
Yeah, so Yuki Tsunoda did say that overtaking Fernando was quite emotional because I think I think Yuki was at the Japanese Grand Prix at Fuji in 2006 or 7, something like that. We have seen the photos going around on social media, and so yeah, he, like, of course, Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, all these guys are heroes for him because Yuki Tsunoda is our age. He's younger than us.
Yep. Absolutely.
So
It's crazy
yeah,
to think that.
so yeah, he said that it was quite an emotion and good feeling moment for him. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that was Yuki Tsunoda. Let's talk about Valtteri Bottas. Now, he had a very quiet race per se, but a little bit controversial on the strategy side of things from Mercedes and Valtteri. What do you think about it?
I mean, I think Valtteri has always been, in my opinion, during the last 4 5 years that he's been with the team, he has been on the back foot with strategy as opposed to Lewis Hamilton, and we have seen that a lot many times before. Even when Valtteri tries to make that call for himself, he does not get the result he wants. But I think that's how Mercedes operates. I personally don't like it, but yeah, he did he
Absolutely.
did get caught out with that strategy, certainly, because
Because
he was
like 2 laps earlier, Mercedes told Valtteri, "Hey, we're going long," and then we see him coming into the pits like a lap after Lewis Hamilton came to the pits, which is absurd, especially since he had a shorter stint on the second set of tires than Lewis Hamilton, which is not to say much because Lewis Hamilton only did like 13 or 14 odd laps on his first set of hard tires, which is kind of absurd in itself.
yeah, definitely, like, and Valtteri Bottas was one of only three people who stopped thrice. One was Pierre Gasly because he had front wing damage.
Well, Valtteri stopped at the end of the race, post the fastest lap, so that's why there's this.
Oh right,
stop.
yeah. Sorry, yeah. My bad.
But yeah, and yeah, I totally agree with you when you talk about how Mercedes operates. They might say that both their drivers are equal, but we've seen that when Lewis is behind Valtteri or when he's struggling in the race, Mercedes do not hesitate to give him like an alternate strategy that might give him an advantage at the end of the race. But when it comes to Valtteri, they are trying to play equal, as they say, between their drivers, which does not sit well. Just let them race, in my opinion. Yeah, very disheartening. I feel sorry for Valtteri, but I think the only thing that's going to change that around is Valtteri putting in out and out performances where he wins, where he beats Lewis in qualifying and in the race just on outright pace for like 4 or 5 races consecutively for the mindset in the Mercedes garage to change.
Yeah, definitely. So in today's race, Valtteri Bottas, like, he didn't qualify. He qualified P3 and he wasn't pushing Lewis Hamilton over Max Verstappen all that long. So that strategy, like, even an alternate strategy would not have helped him too much, in my opinion. But for future, I think Valtteri Bottas needs to, as he himself says, he needs to be selfish, and he needs to be a little rude. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Well, we can hope Valtteri. Well, for the first time in like the last 3 seasons, like I said, Valtteri didn't turn up to the first race, so I hope he's keeping more in store for later in the season and not just putting it all out there during the first race. Um, let's talk about both the Ferraris. Really good race from Charles Leclerc, just losing out one place to Lando Norris at the start of the race, but hanging in there to finish P6. Well, Perez came through the field, but he was in a faster car technically, so I guess Perez was the one who was out of place at the start of the race.
Yeah.
But again, good performance from Charles. Carlos looked like he was struggling at the beginning of the race. He went from uh, Carlos started like P7 or P8, and then he fell to like P10 at the beginning of the race, and then he struggled to make those places back until the very end of the race. Once Alonso hit some troubles, and Stroll ran out of tires. But I would say there was more on, like Carlos left a little bit on the table, and he could have done better during the race. And I think we've got more of Carlos to come in the next couple of races.
Yeah, definitely. As I said earlier, Carlos Sainz has been the best adapter to a new car this season, and it was great to see him overtake Fernando Alonso with Sebastian Vettel involved in the middle. Like, Vettel was a little out of place, but they were still fighting for position. And that double overtake from Carlos Sainz was quite exceptional.
That was beautiful, yes. The double overtake with Seb, Alonso, and Sainz involved was just beautiful from Carlos Sainz through turns 1 and 4. I watched that replay like 3-4 times. I just played it back for myself again and again. But again, a little weird strategy from Ferrari. Letting Sainz out there, on his first stint, like a few extra laps, knowing that the other teams would undercut Sainz. So I think Ferrari didn't make the right strategy calls either regarding Sainz's race, and I think that might be something that Ferrari would want to look into, because I know like Fernando undercut Stroll and Sainz, and he almost undercut Ricardo, I think, too, but and then the other cars pit, so like then Stroll pit the next lap, Ricardo pit the next lap, and then Sainz pitted like 2-3 laps later, so he lost like a lot of time and came out in P10 if my memory serves right, which also cost him some time during the race. Let's talk about the McLarens. Lando Norris finishing P4. I think again another great start for Lando in this season, just like last season. And Danny Rick having a little quieter race, not really challenging Charles Leclerc after the first few laps, which is kind of surprising for me. I thought the McLaren had a lot more pace, because we saw Lando Norris pull away from Charles when needed. Whenever Charles would get a little close, Lando would pull away from Charles at will. So I thought the McLaren had the pace to beat Charles Leclerc's Ferrari, but only Daniel knows what happened during the race. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so Daniel Ricciardo lost the place to Leclerc during the pit stops, and because Norris pitted first, and then on the next lap, or a few laps later, Ricciardo pitted. So I think Ricciardo lost that place to Norris during those laps.
Ricciardo lost the place to Norris during the start. Lando had a blistering start where he overtook down Ricciardo, and then he overtook, I think, Charles's Ferrari after like the VSC or the yellow flags or something like that. I think after the yellow flag. So Lando had a great start, and then Daniel just couldn't capitalize on it. But anyway, I think the McLarens have got the pace. It was really interesting to see them not be like the third best team during qualifying. We saw Charles Leclerc's Ferrari and Pierre Gasly's AlphaTauri ahead of the two McLarens. Really interesting, but I'm pretty sure there's more to come from them too. An interesting mention for the race. Someone was there in the points, in and out of the points. Didn't finish in the points at the end of the race, but we got to mention Kimi Raikkonen. He had a great race in that Alfa Romeo. He was in the points for the majority of the race until Yuki Tsunoda knocked him out of the points. But Kimi looked really good in that Alfa Romeo, unlike Antonio Giovinazzi, who had a rather dismal race, at the tail end of the field.
Yeah, but definitely, the Alfa Romeos are looking way too fast than they should be, as I said, as I told you earlier. But yeah, definitely Kimi Raikkonen having a great race, great pace. Giovinazzi finished where he started in P12, but Kimi Raikkonen made up some places with his racecraft, and some beautiful overtakes
too. Yep.
Yeah, and his overtake on George Russell was quite ballsy. But yeah,
Yeah.
so
Last time Kimi Räikkönen and George Russell tried battling each other out on track, it ended up in a crash with Kimi Räikkönen bumping into George Russell. I
George
think that
Russell,
was
yeah.
back in Turkey, or I don't remember.
Nürburgring.
Nürburgring. Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. Turn one. Uh, but yeah. So let's get into the biggest story of the day: the Verstappen versus Hamilton battle that we've all been waiting for since 2016. Um, finally, what a
Finally.
last few laps! Like even throughout the race, sometimes you thought Verstappen was ahead of Hamilton. Sometimes you thought the Mercedes were ahead of the Red Bull. You just never knew until the very end of the race. And I'm of the opinion that Hamilton's strategy, where he did like a really short stint on on the hards after the first pit stop, and then did like a really long 30-lap stint on his second set of hard tires, was really absurd, and it rather hampered his chances of winning the race for Mercedes. And I think Mercedes could have taken a better strategy call during the race. And I think Lewis also came on to the radio after his second pit stop and said, guys, hey, we should have probably stayed out a little longer since we had the pace instead of trying to do 30 laps on a new set of hards now. But again, what a photo finish. Both drivers looked like they were cracking under pressure. First, Lewis went wide in turn 10 as Max was chasing him down, but then again, he came back, didn't let Max overtake, put his car in all the right places, great defending, and then Max goes out. Max makes an overtake, an illegal overtake. We'll come to that later, but then Max gets clumsy too after he gives the position back to Hamilton. So both the drivers feeling the pressure, and both the drivers showing us that they might be the best on the grid, but they're still human and they will be making mistakes. What was your reaction? How did you feel about the Hamilton Verstappen battle on track today?
That was one of the best battles we have seen in a long time at the front of the grid. And like it started at the start of the race when like it started at the very start and it ended at the very end. There was not a dull moment in between. So yeah, and that incident with Max Verstappen going wide was a very debatable one in that sense. But Lewis Hamilton's pit stop, I think Mercedes justified because they wanted to, they wanted to counter a possible undercut from
Red Bull.
Verstappen. Yeah. So, but as you said, that overtake was that pit stop was a tad bit early, and he could have gone longer because, as we saw on the last few laps, Hamilton was really struggling, and Verstappen was actually closing in on him, and he would have taken the win had it not been for that incident.
Absolutely, had Verstappen been like Lando came out and said, right, you're not supposed to like that. That was at least like the general consensus. That was also echoed by Lando, that you're not supposed to gain advantage by going off track, even if you're pushed off track by the defending driver. You're supposed to let him have the position and then overtake him during the next chance that you get. So Lando did the same thing with Charles, like he described in the post-race interview. So I think if Max would have been a little more patient, I guess he would have reaped the rewards of that. So a little bit, I wouldn't say immature, but a little bit impatient from Max. But we all know how Max is, so no surprises there. But I think this does put a little bit of a stop on all the critics out there who have been saying that Lewis has been winning world championships because he's in the best car. Today, Lewis was not in the fastest car. Today, Lewis did not have the best strategy, and yet he eked out a win from a race that was Red Bull's to lose. And that is why he's a seven-time world champion. That is why he is one of the greatest of all time.
Definitely. Lewis Hamilton is definitely one of the greatest of all times, and I mean, we can't argue with anyone who says that he's only winning because of his car, because that is clearly a wrong opinion. But a great race nonetheless.
Absolutely. And this only tells us like how much more is to come from both the drivers. And Lewis turning up on the first day, like I said, it shows how ready he is for to take on Max this season. He knows what is at stake. He knows his, like, this is like the first proper title defense that we've seen from Lewis from the very first race, right? And we might just see Lewis take it to the next level. Like, we are always saying that Lewis is at the peak of his performance and that he only gets better every year. And Max just might bring out the best in him that we've ever seen. And I am just so looking forward to that.
Definitely. I just hope that Max Verstappen can do what Nico Rosberg did and get that bit of get under the skin of Lewis Hamilton and push him into mistakes like he did today when Lewis Hamilton went wide on turn 10. But great to see Red Bulls fighting for the win. Finally, we know that we can have a great title challenge this season, and great to see the Red Bulls have fighting the Mercedes from the first race of the season, which is very rare.
Absolutely, Red Bull usually start from on their back foot, and they're usually like a few tenths slower on outright pace at the start of the season.
Exactly. So.
But yeah, what a race, and I can't wait for the next race at Imola, the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix on April 18th. Just can't wait for it. Three weeks seems way too far away, and it can't come any sooner for me. But let's just move on to the news from some other racing that happened this weekend. Let's talk about F2 a little bit. So we had the first few races of F2 this weekend. Guan Yu Zhou won the feature race on Sunday. The first sprint race was won by Liam Lawson, and the second sprint race was won by Oscar Piastri, who's a rookie, and it was just his second race in F2, so that is great. Guan Yu Zhou leads the F2 standings with 41 points, and Jihan Daruvula is third in the standings with 28 points, and we'll be cheering him on throughout the season here at Motorsport Baithak. A little about MotoGP. Vinales winning the first MotoGP Grand Prix of the season in Qatar, and more news coming out of MotoGP regarding a similar Drive to Survive season contract on Amazon Prime. So more news on that should be coming out soon, and hopefully we'll have more motorsport content to see every year. Anything else from you, Vedant? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think the Formula 2 weekend was quite an exceptional one because firstly we saw the new format, and I know people were debating about it earlier that we won't go to good circuits, like we won't go to varied circuits, but for me this increases the racing and this increases the mixing up of the grid because of the reverse grid situations, and we saw it at this weekend. It was a great step because Liam Lawson won on his first race, on his debut Formula 2 race. Oscar Piastri won on his second Formula 2 race. And Guan Yu Zhou won his first feature race after competing the entire season and being a title challenger last season. I think he won his first feature race this season. So, definitely a great step and a great weekend, and we did see a few dark horses coming on, so it will be very interesting to see Formula 2 when they come back in Monte Carlo in May.
Absolutely, and I think previously Formula 2 used to have like 12 rounds throughout the season with 2 races each, so there would have been 24 races, and with the new shortened calendar for the feeder series, we have 3 races at every weekend and 7 weekends, so we still have 21 Formula 2 races, and the mixture of the grids basically puts the drivers into various scenarios, and test them in various scenarios throughout the season, and at the end of the day, whoever wins the F2 championship will be the best overall driver, like we all want him to be. But yeah, great stuff. The MotoGP race was also very interesting. It went down to the wire. So for those who missed out on that, if you can go watch the highlights, it was exhilarating. It was absolutely exhilarating. But yeah, that's all from us for this week. Thank you, Vedant, for joining us today to talk about the Bahrain race. And I will catch you next week, same time, same place. See you later. Thank you for listening to us.